You know that feeling, right? You walk into a room and, bam, the lights just snap on. Or you cruise up to a supermarket door and it just glides open for you. It kind of feels like magic, doesn't it? Well, spoiler alert, it's not. It's a really clever piece of tech that's watching, not with a camera, but by sensing your own body heat.
I mean, this is a scene you're a part of literally every single day, and you probably don't even give it a second thought. But that little sensor up on the ceiling, it's not just a chunk of plastic. It's constantly scanning the room. And the second you walk by, your body's natural warmth, your heat signature, is what gives you away.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How in the world does it know you're there? This little device has no eyes, no camera, no microphone. So how does it sense that you, a warm-blooded human, have just stepped into its world? Well, the whole secret is packed into one fascinating little component.
So let's meet the magician behind the curtain, the passive infrared sensor, or what everyone just calls it, the PIR sensor. And this thing is an absolute master at seeing the invisible world of heat energy that's all around us.
Now that word passive, that is the whole secret sauce right there. See, unlike a radar gun that's actively blasting out signals and waiting for them to bounce back, a PIR sensor, well, it does nothing. It emits zero energy. It just sits there, silently, and watches. It's passively waiting for the heat signature of the room to change.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's time to pop the hood and see what really makes these little gadgets tick. What are the parts that come together to create this invisible, heat-seeing eye?
I guarantee you've seen one of these before. Maybe it was mounted on a security light or tucked away in the corner of an office. And that white, plasticky dome? That's not just there for looks. It's a super critical piece of the puzzle, a special kind of lens that completely changes how this sensor sees the world.
Okay, now if we peel back that dome, here's all the good stuff inside. Right at the top, you've got that Fresnel lens. Its whole job is to gather up all the invisible heat light from a huge area and focus it right onto the heart of the operation, the pyroelectric sensor. The teeny tiny signal from that sensor then gets a massive boost from the circuitry on the board. And you can even see those little dials? Those are potentiometers for fine-tuning everything.
So let's just put that all together real quick. The Fresnel lens is kind of like a super wide angle lens, but for heat. The pyroelectric sensor, that's the detective on the case. It's the part that actually notices a change. The circuit board is like a giant amplifier, turning that tiny whisper of a signal into a shout. And the potentiometers, those are just the control knobs, letting you decide how sensitive the sensor is and how long it stays on.
And this brilliantly illustrates the scale we're talking about. On the left, you've got the whole package you'd buy in a store. But look at the right. See that tiny thing tucked inside that little metal can? That little component is the actual eye. It's doing all the heavy lifting.
All right, so we know what's inside. But how does that tiny eye detect movement? Because it's not enough to just see heat, right? It has to see heat that's on the move. And to do that, it uses this really clever two-part trick.
Here's the secret. That little sensor inside is actually split into two separate halves, and the Fresnel lens on the outside projects the image of the room onto these two halves as a bunch of different zones. Now, when you're standing perfectly still, both halves of the sensor see the exact same amount of heat, so everything is balanced, everything is quiet. But the second you move from one zone to the next, you first mess up the view of one half, and then you mess up the view of the other.
So, the crucial point is this. The sensor is not looking for a steady level of heat. No. It's hunting for a super fast change in heat between its two internal halves. First, it just gets a baseline reading of the empty room. Then, you walk into the first detection zone, creating a sharp positive spike in the signal. As you keep moving, you hit the next zone, which creates an opposite, negative spike. And that quick 1-2 punch, that positive then negative pulse, that is the unmistakable signature of motion. That's the trigger.
This simple, but let's be honest, elegant principle is precisely why these sensors are absolutely everywhere. So let's check out the final scorecard and really understand why they've basically taken over our homes, our offices, and our public spaces.
I mean, the advantages are just amazing. These things are dirt cheap, they barely use any power, which is perfect for battery-operated stuff, and they are incredibly reliable for spotting people. But, they do have their blind spots. If you sit still long enough, you pretty much become part of the furniture, and the sensor just ignores you. A really hot day can make them less effective. And since they see infrared light, a simple pane of glass is like a brick wall to them. They can't see through it at all.
But hey, even with those little quirks, PIR sensors are without a doubt the invisible, low-cost workhorses of smart automation. They are a brilliantly simple, totally reliable, and super efficient solution that's just quietly working in the background to make our world a little bit smarter.
So, The next time you walk into a dark room and a light flicks on, you'll know it's not magic. You'll know all about the tiny two-part eye that was watching for the unique signature of your movement. Which leaves a pretty fun question to think about. Now that you know how they really see, where else are these invisible eyes hiding? Right in plain sight.